This is Robert with DC Trolling Motor, and today we're going to do hopefully the last step in my project of upgrading my wiring and my battery system in my boat. And then we're hoping to get to some fishing in the very near future. Once this project is complete, we should be pretty much self-maintaining. So when we plug in at night, it'll probably charge a little bit, but that'll be it. Most of this power will be drawn from the main motor with this last project. So today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be installing this device right here, and I'll give you a close-up picture of that. And what that is a Victron, and let's make sure that we give you the right name. It's an Orion-Tr Smart isolated DC to DC charger. This model here is a 12 volt to 24 10 amp charger. Now they make a larger one, but I went with this size particularly because I didn't want to draw any more amps than that from my main motor. And I'm concerned that this size might be a little large still. So when I go to set it up, if there's a profile in the options, I will actually reduce the amps a little bit lower just because I want to make sure that the main battery charges first. There is also some settings in here to make sure that it comes up to a certain voltage before it charges. And as known with any alternator, when the car first starts or the boat first starts, it will be at a lower voltage and then it will slowly bump up. So first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to show you a picture of the wires. I tried to prepare a few things ahead of time. So if you see here, we have some little wiring leads. These wires are going to go into the top of the unit. So what I did was I cut them a little long. So with the short one, I cut it about 6 inches long. And with the long one, I cut it about 12 inches long. Now I have to tell you that I wanted to get the wire that was rated at the right gauge that I could get as fast as possible. So I'm not going to put a link for this wire because I would recommend that you went with a little bit higher quality wire. So you can see the wire in there, and it is a 12 gauge wire, and I'll show you the spool here. I got a spool of 50-foot wire, red and black 12 gauge. And so the gauge is correct. It's just that I would go with a marine wire if I wasn't in such a hurry to get this project done. And again, this wire is going to work fine. It's going to last for a few years without issue. So when I go to replace it in 2 to 4 years, I'll probably upgrade to a tinned marine wire that will be far more rust resistant than this. Another thing that you see in the picture with the wires is that I went with one of these fuses here, and this is a blade fuse that I was able to just use a butt connector to put into my line. So I got the 12 gauge package, and I could buy one for $7 or I could buy 10 of them for $12. I'm like, oh, come on. So now I got more junk sitting in my garage, just like everything else. And then finally, what I want to talk about is this fuse here, and I'm going to show you a picture of this. This comes in 2 pieces, and so you have the holder, which mounts directly to the battery, and then you have the fuse block itself, which is right here. And you can get these fuses anywhere up to 300 amps. Now, I am at the limit on my battery, so this is the last cord I can put on the battery. So if I put one more thing on the battery, I will have to get some kind of bus, and this will work great. So these are, now see, I meant to bring the package out here with me, but they're marine block fuses. And the nice thing is that if you use a 300 amp one, this one in the picture is only 60 amps, but if you use a 300 amp one, you could connect your starting cables directly to it. So if I add any more wires, what I'll do is I'll upgrade, and I'll have one fuse for all the accessories and one fuse for the starting. So we'll have a 300, and then we'll ditch this one, which is a 60, and we'll downsize to about a 30. And the only reason I would say the 30 is because I want to get something strong enough that's not going to blow all the time, but I don't want it to be too strong to overwhelm my connecting wires, which go to other fused items. So again, fuse matches wire is the most important thing, because if you don't have the right size fuse, your wire becomes a fuse, and that is a fire hazard. So the nice thing about these is that once you install one of these things, when you go to switch out a battery, you just take the one cable loose. So you undo this bolt right here, and then you will no longer have to tear everything apart and rerun all those wires. All the other wires stay attached to this, and you're done. Simple swap in, swap out. So first thing, I use this clamp here to hold the charger in position. So you'll see the picture here of the charger, and this is just a standard workshop clamp. This is the large size. I have a small and a large, and then it is pretty strong, and so it's going to hold that in position. And then if you see in the picture, I took a Sharpie, and it's this one right here, and it's a fine point Sharpie, which is what I always use, and I just go in here and I just draw the little U. Try to keep your pin as straight as possible. Now I did that twice. I did the little U's, and then just on this side, just as a lineup marker, I'm just going to put one line right here. And that's just so that way when I'm looking at it, when this is removed, I'll know exactly where the edge of that bracket goes. I'm going to go ahead and remove this now, and this way you'll be able to get a little bit better look. So, and that's the whole clamp there, and I'll just set this to the side for now. And this is the Orion-Tr Smart charger. Nice cooling fins on the back. It's really heavy for the size. I mean, it's not like, it doesn't weigh 20 pounds. All the information for the input and the output is right here, and you can see all the stuff. So we've got output cables, input cables, and then we have the controller cable. Right now there's a dummy set in there, but if you wanted to have an on and off switch, that's where you would attach it right there. And when you go to program it, you're supposed to disconnect that while you program it before you power up your battery. And so I don't know if I'll show that on camera, but I did want to mention that. Now these will accept just any wires right in there that's the proper size. So now we've got that done and set to the side. So because I'm working in a really tight space, I bought some extra short drill bits. So they're about an inch shorter than normal, and with this drill I might be able to get in there because I don't have a true right angle drill that that works. I have a true right angle drill that doesn't work. And then I also bought some step bits because they're traditionally short, and if I need to upsize the hole a little bit, I'll be able to get those in there without having a big problem. So I'm going to find those marks. And that actually worked. So it's a little difficult on the bottom there because we're at an angle, so you really have to go really slow and just kind of hold the drill bit steady until you start to dig in. And just like that, we're done. I'm going to go ahead and switch out this drill bit now because we have the main hole drilled, and that'll act kind of as a pilot. And then I'll put the step bit in. Here's the step bit that I'm using, and you can see that it's really small. And then same thing, line it up nice and slow. So what I tried to do is I tried to make the holes that I stepped it up to the same size as the U's that I marked. Now, the actual U's in here on the bracket are just a little bit larger than what I marked because you've got the width of the pin, but this is going to be a good size for some bolts. Now I'm going to go ahead and head over to my garage and find some stainless steel bolts that I can put in there, probably the same size as the ones that I used for the AC charger. I'll be back in a second. I went to the garage and I was able to find what I needed to attach these, and basically it's a stainless steel set, and I'll show you what I have here. This is a stainless steel bolt kit, and inside it has bolts, washers, nuts, all kinds of stuff. And then these don't have any lock washers in them, and in a boat you always want to use lock washers or lock nuts. And what I was able to find was I had a package with 2 lock nuts in it. Now I need 4, but I'm not going to worry too much about that right this second. I will just order a couple of these and swap them out later for regular ones. So today I'll install 2 of these because the package has 2 and this is my last package, and then I'll install 2 regular ones. I'll just make sure that when I do install it that I put them on the opposite sides, so that way we'll be able to secure the charger in place. And I'm probably going to put them down near the bottom because I don't want to have to get back in near the bottom again. If I'm up on the top there, I can get that with a wrench and an extension, no problem. So let's go ahead and move on to that. I'm just going to set these down right here. And the first thing I'll do is I'll take this one here, which I have mated the nut to, and I'll go ahead and put this in. So you want to tighten one side down to where it's going to be enough to hold it in place but not be tight, so that way you'll be able to move your charger around a little bit. I'll go ahead and grab a nut out of here and put the top one on. So because of the wires, and I want to be able to install them with being able to visually see it, I'm going to install this upside down. But if you're worried about water intrusion or something like that, it's not a bad idea to hook up the wires and install it the proper way like this. It's just that once I do that, there'll be no way for me to reach any of those connections. Now I push that in there and it's just hanging by one bolt on the opposite side. So we want to go ahead and get the washer and the nut on there. It doesn't have to be tight. And I'm going to hand tighten it all the way down. Like I said, it's snug, but it's not going to be tight. And then we'll add the final bolt with the lock washer, and then we can start tightening stuff down. And I'm going to save this package so I can go online and reorder. I've got this all tightened down, and I want to point something out. When using stainless screws or bolts, do not over tighten them. They will easily break on you. They're great for their rust resistant properties, but they're not so great for their overall strength. If you want something stronger, then you're going to have to use some kind of treated grade 8 or something like that. We have the unit mounted. Now the next thing is the wires. I went ahead and ran the wires from the main battery that the motor is attached to all the way along in the normal areas like this side here where the wire chase is. When we're all done with the projects, all of them, I will re-zip tie everything and get it up out of the way so it can't be caught during our normal fishing day. Here is the main battery wire here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed it through the retainer along with all the other wires. So I fed the wire through, and this is how much extra we have. So my estimate was that I wanted to have about 1 foot to 1.5 foot extra just so I could play with it. I'm going to go ahead and just trim a little bit of this and then connect it. And then when everything is all done and cleaned up, I'll retrim it and get it down to the minimum. Whenever you're running a battery, unless you have something super thick like these ones here, which are one size above what it's called for, you want to make sure that you're not running more than about 12 inches of extra wire. It's nice to have a few inches so that way if there's a little corrosion, you can trim it rather than replacing the whole wire. But extra wire means more voltage drop, and you'll need a heavier wire to run extra length. So don't run a lot more than what you need. A foot, that's about it. I've split these wires just the amount that I need to get a good strip on them, and then I can keep them close together. This is a standard multi-wire tool, and it has all of the features, like it has the cutter, the crimper, and the stripper all built in one. Now in my garage I have individual tools for each purpose, including an automatic stripper, which I really like. But this one here I picked up at a garage sale. It's really heavy duty compared to some of these ones that you find in the kits, which are just garbage. So I normally wouldn't use one of these, but this one here is exceptionally good. If you find one like this, I would say buy it. If you find one of the cheaper ones, they're just garbage, so don't even waste your money. Here is the harness that I made for the battery. And if you can see, this is far longer than what we need, but I like to do this way and then trim it off before I make my final connection. That way we don't have to redo this, because I had to connect all these terminals and do the heat shrink. So you know, they say hindsight's 20/20, and I should have connected this wire before I added the charger. And the reason is because all of the connections that I needed to make were underneath, and it really made it kind of a pain in the butt. I was able to do it without, you know, any major problems. It just meant that I had to go really slow and careful. When you're working around the positive terminal on the fuse bank, the worst thing that could happen is you could blow your fuse. But on a 24-volt system, it's not gonna, you know, kill you. It could give you a little shock or get a little burn. But it made it really a challenge. So I got it in there, and I look at the length of this, and I think that I'm not gonna really trim any of it. I'm just gonna open it up and make sure we're good for the terminal connections. So I'll go ahead and use my wiring multi-tool here. Split this open first. So really quick, I want to show you how I determine how much I need to trim off of here. So I'll take that and push that in the hole all the way. And if you want to, you can use a fine tip Sharpie and just go along the edge and mark it right down near the bottom. And this will give you a length of the maximum that you want to trim off. You want to be able to touch the back of the clamp, but you don't want a bunch of wire exposed sticking out. So then I will take that like that, and I'll put it up next to my other wire that's not marked, which is, since it's black, it's not marked, and I will trim the black one first. So set it in here, hold that like that. Then we've got the red one, and it's marked, and so I just want to be just on the other side of the mark so the mark will stay. A little bit of a twist here to make sure it's all nice and tight. I find it odd that both negatives are together, but it might be something to do with the negatives being common. So before I insert that, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the remote wire. By disconnecting this wire, I've turned off the charge mode. There was a little spark there, and I'm sure that there's capacitors in here that probably charged up through that. And I'll go ahead and finish tightening that down with a regular screwdriver. Now that that's like that, I'm going to just give this a little bend and then give it another bend so that way it's coming straight down. And same thing here. Give this one a little bend that's kind of matching. And give it another bend. Then I'll pull the extra out. And clamp that down. And a tip, when you're using these clamps, line them up and get it snug but not tight. And then, right before you tighten it, give it a little check to make sure everything is where you want it and you're not going to pinch a wire. I don't think that that's a real big issue here with what we're doing. But the communication cable for this battery monitor is definitely very fragile. And they don't really need to be particularly tight anyway. They just need to be firm. So I have two things left to do here. And one is to make the final connection to the main battery. And then the other is to log in and see if I've got connection. And we have to connect the main battery so we have power before this unit will be operational. So I'm not going to actually show you that. I'm going to go ahead and pause the camera and the wires. And I'll put the picture back up here again. You see the wiring harness that I made that has the fuse on it. And then the ring terminal for both the negative and the positive. And I'm just going to go ahead and connect that right now. So I'll be back in 1 second. I completed that battery connection and then I pulled up my Victron app, and after I entered my password, which is 6 zeros by default on this model, I was able to go ahead and update the firmware, as that's the first question it asks you once it's all connected. And now we're looking at this and I'm getting a full connection here, and I'll just go okay. I'm going to try to pop a picture up here of the screen of the firmware. So I'll see what I can do. So it'll give you a warning message to change your PIN code. And I recommend that if you have something that you use, I have a code that I use for all of my non-critical devices that I just go ahead and put into everything. You know, like some people use things like, 1239, and it's easy to remember. But you just want it to be something different than the default, so that way when you're right next to somebody else's boat fishing, they can't log into your stuff. And people do it on accident, not on purpose, so I wouldn't call it malicious. So we're here in the main menu now, and I'm going to look at settings. And what I want to do is I want to change it to a charger. And then I want to change the battery to lithium iron phosphate. And it's already set on lithium iron phosphate, and it's set on all of the things that I need it to be set on. And it's kind of nice. I don't have to change it, but I'm assuming that they have assumed that people that buy this unit will have lithium iron phosphate second batteries. And I don't see anything different that I need to do with this. Now, I do want to do some custom settings so that way it won't start charging until the other battery is at the highest voltage. But I won't be able to do that until we get on the water and running the other motor. I could hook up all the water pumps and stuff like that, but the water pumps are really not good for your boat motor, and you should avoid using them unless you really need to, like for an end of season flush or something like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this back to the standard settings and make sure that the engine shutdown is detected. Engine shutdown detect enabled. And when the engine is off, it will not run. It does say the type of alternator, and we want to make sure that we're on a regular alternator for this one. And it was set for smart alternator, which might be really common in your brand new vehicles, but I don't think that that's common in any of your older ones. Now, if that doesn't work for my motor, I will go and look up settings and change that. But this comes with a complete manual with everything that you need in here, and I think I said it right here. So all of the directions for doing custom settings are going to be in here, and they have a really good website and YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel is just great. That's how I made my final buying decision on this unit. So I think this looks good. I'm going to go ahead and connect the remote to re-enable the on power. If you wanted to be able to turn this off manually, you would just connect a switch directly to this wire right here where it says remote. So everything that's in this video is going to be in links below. Those are affiliate links, so if you use those, I will get compensated, and I appreciate it. But more important is that we always put some articles in the top and links to my trolling motor website for this video. And again, we're looking for doing some fishing videos in the real near future. We're coming up on our salmon fishing season, and this project is complete as of now. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.